Welcome back to West Best Media. Senegal had launched one of the biggest financial investigation in the modern history. Shortly after taking office, President Bassirou Faye new administration ordered an official audit of the country's public finance covering the previous government. When the first finding began to emerge, they stunned the financial market. According to Senegal Court of Audit, and later acknowledged by the IMF, Senegal public debt at the end of 2023 was revised from 74.4% of the GDP to a nearly 99.7% of the GDP, raising serious questions about the previous disclosure liability. The audit also found the 2023 budget deficit was over 10% of the GDP, roughly double what previously been reported. Those findings immediately caught the attention of investors, international lenders, the IMF. For a moment, it looked as though this investigation would dominate Senegal political conversation for months. Then, almost overnight, the spotlight shifted. The investigation wasn't officially cancelled. There was no announcement saying it had been abandoned. But yet somehow, the national conversation changes. Why? That's the question we're exploring today. Because millions of Senegalese voted for change. They voted for transparency. They wanted to know the true state of the country's finance. And when the new government promised answers, many believe this would become one of the most important investigations in Senegal's recent history. Instead, another story took center stage. And that's where this investigation seems to fade from the public view. Before we go further, if you enjoy balanced, in-depth documentary on Africa's biggest political, economical stories, subscribe to West Best Media and turn on the notification. We don't just report headlines. We follow the story long after the headlines change. Now, when President Faye and Prime Minister Sonko entered the office, they inherited more than a government. They inherited expectation. For years, questions had been raised about Senegal public finance. How much debt had accumulated? Where were the official figures completely accurate? What was the country's true financial position? The new administration promised answers, not through political speech, not through accusation, but through official audits. The objective was straightforward. Examine the books, verify the numbers, and tell the public what the investigation found. These were simple political questions. They were economical questions. The answer mattered to ordinary citizens, businesses, investors, and international lenders. The entire country was waiting for the result. And when the first finding began to emerge, they surprised far more people than many expected. An investigator revealed Senegal's public account. The finding proved far more significant than many expected. According to the Court of Auditors, public debt at the end of 2023 was nearly 99.7% of the GDP and 74% of the previous reported by former administration. The audit also revealed that the government 2023 budget was more than 10% of the GDP, roughly twice the official figure. Those revisions weren't simple accounting adjustment. They affect Senegal financial credibility. The IMF paused progress under its existing financial program, while the discrepancies were being assessed, and the discussion began to for corrective measures. International investors took notice. Credit rating and credit agency took notice. Financial market took notice because confidence mattered. When investors begin to question countries' finance reporting, borrowing becomes more expensive. Investments decision becomes more cautious, and rebuilding trust take years. Many believe this investigation had only reached its beginning. Instead, the public conversation suddenly began to move somewhere else. Let me ask you something. Whenever a new government takes office, should it conduct a full audit of the previous administration finance? Share your thoughts and comments. At first, every discussion centered on the audit, the findings, the debt, the unanswered question. Then the spotlights move increasingly. Public attention focused on the President, Faye, and his Prime Minister, Ousmane Sonko. Not because either leader abandoned the reform. Both had campaigned and transparency. Both had promised accountability. But many political observers begin to notice differences in emphasis. Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko often project urgencies, move quick, implement reforms, push accountability. President Faye appear focused and protected institution, maintaining stability and balance reform with long-term confidence. The destination appeared to be the same. The pace looked different. Soon, television debates weren't leading with audit anymore. Social media wasn't asking about debts every day. Political discussion had shifted, and one important question quietly slipped into the background. What happened with the investigation itself? If you find this documentary valued, take a second to hit the like button. It helps more people discover West Best Media and support the work we are doing. Let's separate the documents from the fact and speculation. There has been no official announcement stating the investigation was abandoned. There was no confirmed evidence that it stopped. In fact, discussion between Senegal and the government of the IMF continues after the audit, as authorities work to reconcile financial data and strengthen transparency. That's important, because this isn't about conspiracy theories. It's about public attention. Sometimes an investigation continues quietly while the public attention moves somewhere else. The original question never disappeared. How much debt had actually accumulated? Who approved the decision that led there? Would the complete finding become public? Would there be ultimately would someone be ultimately be accountable? The question remains. The people stop asking them as often. History has shown that some of the most important investigation doesn't disappear because they end. They disappear because of public attention move elsewhere. If you know someone who follows Africa politics, economics, or current affairs, share this documentary with them. The best conversation begins when people have both the facts and the contents. So, did Senegal's biggest financial investigation disappear? Maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe a better question is, what happened after the spotlight moves? Because while public debate increasingly focused on the relationship between President Faye and Prime Minister Sonko, the question that launched this investigation went away. What did the audit ultimately discover? How much debt had actually accumulated? What reform will follow? Will there be accountability? These aren't simple political questions. They are national questions that affect Senegal's future, its economic, its credibility, its public trust. Until those questions are fully answered, this story remains unfinished. Maybe investigation never disappear. Maybe the public conversation simply move on before the biggest chapter had been written. Headlines change, politics change, public attention change, but the search for the truth shouldn't. If you haven't watched this far, if you have been watching this far, thank you. Subscribe to West Best Media, because in part 2, we'll continue following this investigation wherever the evidence leads.